The show must go on. So here we go. I decided to get out of my own way and date in a very different way. Of course, what I was really falling for was who I got to be around this person. And clearly we're having technical difficulties today, but is it episode 7? Hello, and welcome to Bless Your Heart podcast. I'm your host, Laura Hartnett, and today we are going to be continuing the topic of dating. Why? Because honestly, after I've been listening to a lot of my friends talking about dating, a lot of people that have been sitting in my chair talking about it, and what really kind of made me really want to do this and talk about this subject again was the talk that I had with my daughter and her wisdom and that she has already at 18 years old, just from her own dating experiences. It's just absolutely amazed me. And it basically helps me kind of get back in the mode of like remembering that it doesn't have to be so complicated. I mean, I think people make this whole concept of dating so complicated because we as women, we are stubborn. And guys, yes, you know what? You're welcome. Like, I finally said it. Women are stubborn. I myself am one of the most stubborn people, but I decided whenever it came to this round of dating, meaning like after I've gotten divorced, I decided to get out of my own way and date in a very different way. And what I mean by that is I think before I would find myself almost gaslighting myself and trying to lie to myself. I mean, we women are over here accusing men of being liars, but the truth of the matter is we're probably the worst liars of all because we will go through major depths to lie to ourselves about a guy. And we will try to convince ourselves of the reasons why he's not calling us, he's not texting us. And it's amazing to me the stories that we can conjure up in our own minds to convince us that he is into us when the truth of the matter is he's really just not that into you. And that's the reason why I started using that and applying that to my life. I remember whenever that whole book came out by Greg Barrett, he was a writer of Sex and the City, and he talks about sitting around the table with all the writers and how they would come up with these storylines of all the women, of Samantha and, Charlotte and all those girls, was based on their own stories of dating and their own experiences with relationship. And so he said that we would just talk about it and we would discuss these different experiences. And he was one of the only guys in the room. And he eventually just said, like they were all saying, well, Greg, you're an expert. And he's like, I'm an expert. And he was like, well, I guess I'm an expert at being a guy. I'm not like a sociologist or anything like that, but definitely an expert on being a guy. So they would run all these questions, by him that they were having in their own personal lives. And it's just fascinating to me because he boiled it all down to like, he was shocked. He was shocked at the depths that women would go through in order to convince themselves that, no, there's a good reason that he's not texting me or he's not calling me. And, I have a lot of friends that are in the dating coaching realm. I have a few friends that do that. And I also have reached out to people who have done it as well, that coach and do stuff. And what it basically comes down to is, they are now creating these programs to really have women understand their value. They are all talking about how that is really the crux of the problem is we women, whenever we are dating guys and we are not accepting what the truth is and we're trying to lie to ourselves and make them like us more, it's because we feel like if this person likes me, I'm more valuable because I like them. And so I'm trying to over here, maintain my own value and say, no, like we're a match. And I think it's also because, deep down, we want that connection. We want that person that we have these feelings about, to feel the same way and have a mutual feeling so that we can have this connection and, la-di-da, skip off into the sunset. And as good as that sounds, that can only be attained if we stop lying to ourselves. If we are not getting the attention that we are wanting, like we're not getting the daily texts, we're not getting the phone calls, we're not getting the flowers, we're not, whatever it is you want it to be, and instead you're coming up with excuses after excuses of, oh, well, and not acknowledging that this isn't actually in line with what you want. I'm on one of these Facebook groups, and it's, one of those like, don't date him, or are we dating the same guy? Something like that. I follow a few of them because I honestly find them fascinating just from a sociological standpoint and viewpoint. So I love watching all the posts and kind of seeing really the patterns of behaviors of a lot of these women that come on there. And one pattern that is just reoccurring is that women are going on there and trying so hard to understand the guy and what it is he's doing and what his intention is, and saying he's doing this and it makes me feel this way, and it's doing this and it makes me feel that way. And then I just kind of, as I'm reading this, I'm going, and a few times I've commented and I've just said, well, it doesn't sound like he's really making you feel good. So why are you still here? Like, regardless of whether or not, let's say the truth is that lie that you're telling yourself, that he's just super busy is one of the most common excuses. And the truth of the matter is he's just not that into you. But let's say he was. Let's say, for the sake of the argument, he was totally into you. He was madly in love with you. He was just super busy. But whatever it is, you're still not feeling like your needs are being met. You're still not like feeling like he's meeting your expectations. And it's a very not satiable relationship. Like, you're not satisfied. And so why are you fighting so hard for this? Like, why are we as women fighting so hard for these subpar relationships that are not fulfilling? I mean, shouldn't we, if what we really want is a fulfilled relationship, shouldn't we be actually working hard at telling ourselves, like, of seeing the truth? And instead, we're working hard in the wrong way. We're working hard at lying to ourselves. So whenever I started looking back, I decided I'm going to not lie to myself and see how that changes my experience in dating. So I remember, like, a few years ago, I have had this on again, off again, on again, off again with this guy who, I mean, as far as compatibility goes, like, extremely compatible. Like, we had the best time because whenever I was with him, I was 100% myself. I got to be my silliest self, my goofiest self. I had the absolute most fun I've ever had. And of course, what I was really falling for was who I got to be around this person. And I loved who I got to be when I was with this person. I got to actually be very in my feminine state because he took care of all the planning. He loved to, set up the dates, and because he wanted to do what he wanted to do. This is what it all really came down to. And what I finally realized is he was doing what he wanted to do. That's why he was putting it together, and he was, in charge of making reservations and getting the whole night figured out. And then I just happened to think it was for me. And I think, if I'm being completely honest, I think part of it was for me, of course. I'm not saying like he was complete narcissist or anything, because it's not like that. But, we were really compatible. So all the things he wanted to do, I wanted to do. And problems didn't really start coming up until I had certain expectations that he wasn't willing to do. And what I mean by that is little things, like I said in the last episode, of like walking me in my, car, those little extra steps of chivalry. And that's not something he did. He didn't feel like it was something he needed to do. And so that's where our compatibility started falling off. And then I knew this, and I could find myself really, this was like, and that's where it's so relatable, and I can really understand why women do cling on, because it's very hard to find that feeling that you get, that euphoria that you have with somebody who really sparks that chemistry in you, and all those all those different heart hormones and brain hormones that just make you just lose it, So, it's hard to find that, and I understand that. And so when you do find it, you're going, oh, but can we just make this actually real? Can we just make this one really stick? And then we start just little bit by little bit tricking ourselves into making excuses for them. Honestly, I think that that's the reason why, aside from this guy, side note, and I like to separate those because I do not think this guy was a narcissist, but that's why narcissists are so good at what they do when they love bomb. Because what happens with narcissistic relationships is love bombing makes you feel a certain way and you get attached, okay? Once they know you're attached, then they know their work here is done. They don't have to fight for their reputation anymore because you're going to fight for them. You're going to be doing all the fighting for them because that's what we do. We are over here. Once we get attached, we will be like, no, and we come up with all these excuses ourselves. So as long as the love bomber knows that they have you and you're attached, then they can sit back and completely be themselves. And they start giving us mixed messages. Those mixed messages, we're over here going, no, they mean this. And we keep on trying to make them not mixed messages. We keep trying to make them actually like the same message of, no, they like us, but they're just showing us in different ways, whether it's because they're scared, they came out of a really bad marriage, and so this has really traumatized him, and this is a result of that, and that's the reason why he's treating me like this. Well, the truth of the matter is, if that was true, and he is coming to you, approaching you from a place of trauma, I think he needs to heal from that. Like, why are you the one who has to be his therapist to basically take on all the beatings because he never healed? And now you have to just be super understanding, not getting your needs met so that he's okay. That's a complete reversal of what all of this is intended to be. And this is why it's not going to work and you're not going to be satisfied. And if that is how you start the relationship, you don't think as years go on that it's only going to get worse from there, and he's going to start losing not only respect for you, if he has any to begin with, but he's going to start losing even more affection and all those other things because there's a piece of him that still needs to be healed. But, going back to, the narcissist and love bomber, that's why it's so important to really understand, what love bombing is, what this attachment, what you're actually attached to. What are you really attached to? Are you attached to him and who he really is, or who you feel like you are when you get to be with that person, or just this whole idea that you've made up in your head? And as the truth starts to reveal itself, are you trying to convince yourself of who he really is? And who he really is and who you want him to be are the same person. Do not do that. So, whenever I was dating this on again, off again guy, it finally came down to my birthday. And my birthday is just a really important day for me. And, whenever he was making up excuses not to have called me and talked to me, and I had several people that were calling me, texting me, leaving me just the sweetest, kindest voicemails on my birthday. And I was surprised. I was surprised that this person, didn't think of me. This person, who we had just such this connection with, failed to remember. And this has actually happened twice now. And at some point, we finally got back, when I got back from vacation, because I was away on vacation during my birthday. And when I got back, we had just this heart to heart, and I basically just told him, listen, you're just not that into me, and that's okay, because if you were, you would be making plans to wish me a happy birthday in some creative way because you wanted me to feel your love from all the way in Hawaii where I was. Like you would have wanted me to know how much you cared and how much you wish that you were there spending it with me. And I'm sorry, because that's how I portrayed, that's for me how I communicated my birthday and its importance. I'm one of those people, I love to celebrate life. Even though I'm single, I love Valentine's Day. Like, I absolutely love Valentine's Day because I love the idea of love. I love, even if I don't have a significant other on Valentine's Day, then I choose to make it like all about the people I do love, my kids, my family, there's people in my life that I love. I mean, so it doesn't have to be just about a significant other. And so, I'm big on celebrating birthdays and anniversaries and all these types of things, because, then every day you can have a reason to celebrate. And so when it comes to my birthday, I feel like I'm not one of those people that just sits around and says, like, oh gosh, I'm getting older. I'm sad I didn't accomplish what I wanted to, or, look at what I didn't do or don't have on my birthday. I really try to be intentional about saying, I've made it another year. Through all that this life had to throw at me this year. And I'm stronger because of it, because of my mindset and how I approach these adversities and these, tragedies or whatever it is that happened. I am still showing up and proud of who I am because this whole life has shaped me and I'm 1 year older and wiser, and because I chose to be. And so I celebrate that. And I feel like that's something we should celebrate. And anybody that's in your life, if you have communicated to them that your birthday is something that's special and they don't even remember to text you or call you, like, that's a problem. That is a huge problem. So I basically, I just told them, even if you care about me, this is how you treat somebody you care about. It doesn't work for me. Because I'm not asking you to change for me, because I think by the time you get to my age, I'm 39. And by the time you get to my age, most of the time people are set in their ways. Now, if he really wants to keep you and he wants to make these changes, great. Here's an opportunity. But I would also, dare to say that who knows if once they do have you, you get married and all of that, if now it's like, well, I know I did all of that to get the girl, but, here comes your birthday and this isn't my thing. This isn't, he already kind of showed you how he is on birthdays. So it was a really hard truth for me to accept, but I just made a promise to myself and I kept to it. And, he said that he was going, this revealed to him like this whole thing of who he was, and it really made him think a lot. And so he's, started talking about possibly going to therapy and changing his life. And I was like, that's great. I'll believe it when I see it. And we never talked again after that. So, I was proud of myself for sticking to my guns because, by the time you do get to my age, time is of the essence. Like, I am not going to be sitting around and wasting time lying to myself either, because, every moment counts and my time is so limited to who I can spend it with. And the people that during my free time that I do have, I want those people to build me up, fill up my heart, because I spend all day giving my heart to people all day long. I give my heart to my children, to my clients, to my coworkers, to my family, my mother, my father, my friends. I give so much of myself every day that if my significant other that I am also giving of myself to can't do something to fill me back up, then I don't think that it's worth that time. And it shouldn't be this big complicated thing. It should be they enjoy doing that. And I know I mentioned this in my last episode, but it's funny how children being just so young and naive, yet they have a clarity about them that is like, my daughter has such clarity, and it's great to have these conversations with her because she doesn't have all these traumas and these complicated lives. And, I feel like sometimes by the time you get to our age around, 39 and 40s, and, so many guys will use that as an excuse because they don't want to hurt you and tell you the truth that they just don't like you. And at least they don't like you enough to commit to you or to put forth that kind of effort that you're asking for. And, whenever we believe it because we go, well, yeah, I mean, I've lived through a lot of trauma. I've experienced all of these things. So it makes total sense what he's saying. Whereas, whenever my 18-year-old's dating, she's like, there's no trauma and all that stuff. The trauma is over, smaller relationships. But she's like, man, people will still say that. And I'm listening to her like going, what are you talking about? Like, how can this person like just wait till you're my age and you've gone through what I've gone through? And I know it's all relative because also I myself haven't gone through probably the worst of what other people have. But it still just goes down to it, which she sees it for what it is too. And she's just like, it's just the excuses that they come up with are ridiculous, and I just have to tell my friends and I have to tell myself and that he just doesn't like you. And I'm like, Kaylee, that is like so true. And I just loved that me and her talked about it like this because it just brought me back to it. I actually downloaded that book again and I'm rereading it because that has been the ongoing thread in my dating experience. And I will honestly say, I've also been on the other side of it. And I didn't really have that much clarity because with some of the guys that I have dated that I knew deep down, like it wasn't going somewhere, but I wanted to give it like an honest shot because I had so much respect for some of these guys, but I just didn't have the chemistry and I didn't have that, that I thought maybe it could develop because the guy that I was referring to earlier in this episode that I really had this on again, off again, I didn't have this like initial just like major spark. And so it really grew. And so I was like, maybe it's going to be something like that. So I have, not for the sake of leading on, because I don't believe in that. But more so just giving it a chance and seeing if maybe my feelings would develop. And unfortunately, while I was, giving opportunities, chances to see if something developed, other side would grow quicker than my side. And then I would sense almost this like anxious attachment and it really pushed me away. And so if they were to really read my signals, they would have seen that I wasn't that into them. And, they would have probably been able to end it probably sooner. In which case, those things, eventually it came down to me just having to be honest and saying like, okay, this is just really after kind of some assessment and how I'm feeling like, and it's actually not growing. It's just kind of staying stagnant, or more so I'm moving into this like where I'm really sensing more of a friendship and I'm not seeing that long term. So I've tried really hard to like be honest whenever I do have those feelings and just say it, and so as much as I've tried to be honest with the people that I'm dating, I've also tried to take that and be as kind and generous with myself about my honesty too. And just say, he's just not that into you, Laura. For what reason? I don't know. And I think that the crux, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this episode, is what a lot of these dating coaches are basically starting to do and repeating is women cannot accept the truth because they are giving other people the key to their value. Like they are allowing other people to have this external value and to validate them. And that's not how it works. And so it's more about, these coaches are empowering women to see that you are valuable outside of these external things. Like you're intrinsically valuable already. You already have value. And that is something that I think I really understood and I worked on because of my faith and my relationship with God and my Creator. And the more I built that up, the less I needed that validation that was external. And I was more so had my self-esteem through the businesses that I did, through the relationships and friendships that I built, and just my connections with all sorts of different people. And I have really deep, meaningful connections with a lot of my clients. Like, you know, you hear about that, and I would always heard about that in people's careers. But honestly, like we talk about just really deep stuff and soulful stuff. And, you know, I know a lot of details, and they share with me just like their deepest parts of their heart, and vice versa. I do also with them because I really trust them, and it's such a beautiful relationship. And so having that experience, that's not like a guy, but just seeing how I experience these types of interactions with other females make me realize, like, without, like, once we start adding, this kind of sounds ridiculous, but it's like where it goes south is whenever it starts putting a male into the picture. I mean, not really. Not really. I also have really, you know, good guy friends, but that's a whole When Harry Met Sally situation where it's like, you know, is there such thing as being friends with a guy? Can you? Like, no guy can actually be friends with a girl, or vice versa. There's always somebody who likes somebody. I don't know. I think there's something to that. Actually, I do believe that. But I'm just like, you know, what's there to do? So I just established like a boundary. I think that there's clarity there. I try to just be honest and clear. So it's like, hey, if you want to continue this friendship, and if you do have feelings, like, at least you just know where I stand. And so that's kind of on you at this point. But, and same with myself, me knowing, like, can you be friends with this person? Is this something you can do because you do have an attraction to them? And honestly, sometimes I'm stronger than others, but for the most part, I've been like, Laura, don't kid yourself. You can't do that. Just let him go. Let him go and carry on and be happy. So that's what I've tried to do. But, you know, going back to my original thought of what I was saying is, the more I really understood my value through the relationships that I have with other people, and also just with my relationship with myself, with God, I really started understanding that if another guy, that even the ones that I do have a connection with, that I think are really great, I really started learning, if it's not a mutual connection, then what is it that I'm attached to? And like I said before, what I realized is I liked who I was when I was with this person. And so that's what I wanted more of. But guess what? I get to carry me wherever I go, and I just have to find the right people to allow me to express that part of me. And I can find that in friendships. I don't have to find that only in guys. And those are the people that I really like to carve out time for in my life. And so I realized once I knew that these people, these guys, didn't hold the key to me experiencing me, that I actually hold the key to experiencing me, it made them less powerful. And it made them, oddly enough, not less valuable. I think that's such a negative way of looking at it. Like, I don't value you. I don't mean it like that, but it lessened the grasp of what I needed from them, because I realized I already had it within myself. And so if they didn't like that, they didn't like me, or they didn't feel that mutual connection with me, I was okay with it, because I just felt like that doesn't mean that you don't, that you don't like me, you're not that into me. That doesn't change my value in society and with my people and the people who I love. It just changes the fact that you can't see my value. Whatever lens that in perspective you've made and you've created through your experiences, you don't have the lens that sees my value, that what I could add to your life. And that just means we're not a match. And that's totally okay. Like, it's no big deal. Like, move on, find somebody who does. Because so many women are like I said earlier, so many women are sitting here trying so hard to explain, and he hasn't seen me yet. He's just not seeing me yet. Once he sees me, once he sees that I'm sticking around no matter what, then it's going to break his trust issues. It's going to break through his wall. I'm going to bust through that wall of his that's around his, warm heart. That's just a layer of ice. And it's, is that what you want to do though for the rest of your relationship? Is just be constantly, because you're setting a precedent. Like you're basically saying this is how this relationship's gonna go. Like, I will bend over backwards and cater to your every whim at every bit of sacrificing of myself. Isn't that codependency? Like, that's not healthy. And so you shouldn't be doing that. You just flat out shouldn't be doing that. And if you're doing that and you're caught in a vicious cycle, then there needs to be a major self-assessment. And I started realizing that I became a lot stronger. And I'm not going to say it's not hard. Like, there's been like more recent experiences that I've had that really took me like, oh my gosh. Like, it was a really, really tough one this past, because I was in a situation where this person was extremely emotionally intelligent. And what I mean by that is he knew what women want to hear. And he could tap into an understanding. And I think it was because he has a really strong relationship with his mother. I have learned that men that have a really strong relationship with their mother have like a feminine intelligence that can be very scary, honestly, like borderline manipulative, because they have the ability to make you believe that they see you, when in reality, it's not about whether or not they can or cannot see you. They can, but what are they going to do with it? That scares me. Like, some people use that in order to manipulate and get their way and get what they want out of it. And that's something that I've learned about some of these more highly intelligent, femininely intelligent men. And so I've started learning more about this whole side of emotional intelligence. And I used to be so attracted to that, and it was an automatic green flag when I saw emotional intelligence and somebody's ability to articulate their emotions. And now I have, through my experience, seen how quickly women will let somebody in that has that, including myself. And I let somebody in and my guard just went like busted through that guard so quickly. That was like my Achilles heel, like, because this person seemed to see me. And once I felt seen, I felt like he saw my value. He saw these things in me. But then when he started making up excuses of why this wasn't going to go deeper into a relationship, I had a choice to make. And that was a very, very difficult choice, okay? I was proud of myself for the choice that I made, because what I really at that moment was confused with was this whole dichotomy of what was happening, where on one end, I felt so seen and cared for and nurtured. And then on the complete other side of it, it was like, but I'm not going to do anything with that. We're only going to have a friendship. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Like, okay, I hear you. So I'm going to put up a boundary, which is what I did, and say that knowing, even though you have the ability to see me and experience me in this level of depth, I am not going to allow that to cross over into a physical state and to these other ways, because that is where I am at risk of getting very attached. And you're basically saying that there's a chance of me getting attached without commitment. And that is not a safe place to be. So I put up a boundary, and I'm glad I did, because every excuse that was made for the reason why he was not interested at the time of, moving, forward with this relationship was completely just about less than 24 hours later. I found out he was in a relationship. I found out that he found somebody who none of that mattered. And I was like, okay. And it made it very clear to me. And I was honestly in shock, because I was like, I genuinely believed everything that this person said. And then that's when I realized is we as women, unfortunately, a lot of these self-help books that we read, we think we're so unique. We as people think we're so unique. And I would read a lot of these self-help books and be like, oh my gosh, they're talking to me. Because the truth of the matter is we're really not. And once a guy takes the time to really understand women and really start to see why they tick, it's scary what they can do and how they can manipulate women. And I started learning about that. And when I did, I started realizing that there's a whole nother element now of how I have to protect myself. But the good news is it all goes back to the same simple concept. As complicated and complex as it started to feel, I just went and reverted back to the very simple concept of I'm his actions and his words are not lining up, and I am going to hear his actions, but his words are telling me he's not ready for a relationship, even though his actions and his depth and all this that he's bringing feels like it's a different story. But I was like, you have to listen to the story. If there's any bit in there that says I'm not interested, you have got to hold on to that. Even if it's a small amount, you have got to hold on to that until that either is replaced with commitment or, truth or whatnot. So, it's really that simple. If they want to, and that's what I always say. Some people say he's really not that into you. My saying is, if he wants to, he will. And if he's not, he doesn't want to. And he doesn't want you. And you have to listen to that. And so that's where I've been living. And, these people will end up coming back into your life. And this person, both people, honestly, I feel like there always seems to be this cycle back around, because it usually doesn't end badly. And so it's just kind of like, okay, well that didn't end badly. And I've already been through these bad things. Maybe I should revisit that. And I'm like, sorry, we've already visited this. You already showed me once that you don't see my value. So I'm just not going to let you in again and try to see my value or assess whether or not I'm valuable or not. I don't want that, because that's what it comes down to. I guess I could do that, but I want somebody who sees me, hears me, listens to what I have to say the first time around and says, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I want. Here she is, and sees me the first time and says, yes. And it's a clear yes to them. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want for myself. And so I'm not settling. And if it means that I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, okay, because I have plenty of other people to surround myself with. And I'm happy with that. And it's totally okay. So I'm going to make it. I will go on the beach trips with my friends. I might be the third wheel, but who cares? Like, it doesn't mean I can't have fun. It doesn't mean I can't enjoy this life. Like, there are so many things that are enjoyable. I mean, you get married and it's so much of the honeymoon phase and it's so great. And if we could make that part of it last forever, then that would be absolutely phenomenal. But life is not over if you don't have somebody to share it with. It's what we all want, but it's not the end all be all. Your life is over. It has no purpose and meaning because you don't have that. So it's like, if you really think that, then you probably shouldn't be in a relationship because you're leading from a place of desperation, and that is really unhealthy. And that means that you are going to be lying to yourself like you wouldn't even believe. And that is definitely not something that you want to do. So, we're going to be talking about more on this subject later too, because this is something that I really want to dive into and just discuss because I find it fascinating whenever I do start having, different people on my show. Because I am going to be moving into that. I just wanted to first kind of get all of this established. But once I start doing interviews and things of that nature, we're going to be doing a lot more discussion on topics such as this, because I think that I learned so much from people, and I have a lot of great people in my life. A lot of my guy friends that I do have right now, they are really intelligent. They are emotionally intelligent, but they're genuine friendships. And I feel like their take on things is so fascinating to me. And we love geeking out on this subject. So I have a couple of friends who I'll just be like, sorry, I sound like a negative Nancy or cynical, but what does this mean? Why is this happening? And and they're always very honest with me and they shoot it to me straight. And I so appreciate them for that. So you guys know who you are. And I am hoping that maybe one day in the future, I get to have them on my show. Fingers crossed. A couple of them are already agreed to it. So we will be doing that. But until next time, thank you so much for joining me. And I can't wait to see you again. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.